we are here to study this book. When we talk about the collection, Life in the Spiritual World by Andre Luiz, we notice that Andre Luiz starts telling his own story on the first book, Nosso Lar, and then he starts working on the second book, which is The Messengers, and we can follow the evolution of Andre Luiz as a spirit learning in the spiritual world. This book is more or less the middle of the collection. I think it's number 6 or number 7. So Andre Luiz is already very aware of his responsibilities, aware of the work that he's doing in the spiritual world. But this book in particular, I'm not going to tell you the story of the book. You have the books for sale there. You should buy and read, because if I tell you the story, it really is going to sound like a Brazilian or Mexican telenovela, because it's all so, you know, dramas and everything. So what we're going to do here, we're going to study. We're going to study particular aspects of what happens during the book. So the book covers reincarnation, the book covers relationships, life in the spiritual world, processes of obsession. So we're going to talk a little bit about everything. And as Fred mentioned, we're going to interact. So if you have questions, don't wait till the end to ask. Just ask the question. Raise your hand. We're going to talk about it, because it's really, again, it's more of a study than a lecture per se. So, yeah, let's go one by one, right? The slides are very beautiful. They are drawings by the group by Moser Couto in Paraná, and they have a bunch of books that they did these drawings, and they are very helpful for us to understand what happens and to have a visual image of what's going on, and also for you not to sleep during the talk, so you have something to look at. So it starts, as all Andre Luiz books, starts with him and a companion, a colleague, in this case Hilario, in this book, in the spiritual world. Hilario was also a doctor. Andre Luiz, as many of you remember, was a doctor when he was incarnated. And then when he discarnated, he had to relearn how to be a doctor in the spiritual world. And he's still learning and still not working as a doctor in the spiritual world. He's working as an assistant. We have Clarencio. Clarencio is one of the 72 ministers of Nosso Lar. And like in all the books, he's going to guide Andre Luiz and Hilario and to help throughout the process of this whole book. They are talking to a lady in Nosso Lar. We don't have the name of the lady, but she's telling about someone that is praying, that sent a prayer, is praying on what they call a diverted prayer. Now, the original in Portuguese, it's called a refracted prayer. A refraction is when light deviates from its original, light or sound deviates from its original path. So in English they use the translation diverted, which explains also what happens with the prayer. So Clarencio explains that the diverted prayer is when you pray to someone that is in no conditions to help or to receive the prayer or to use the prayer, if the person praying deserves the assistance, deserves the help, the prayer is diverted to someone that can help and assist. In this case, this lady received the diverted prayer and took to Clarencio. So Clarencio said, let's see from whom this prayer comes and let's see how we can help. Back. There we go. So here, the prayer is coming from Evelina. Evelina is a 15-year-old girl. She lost her mother. Her father remarried, and they are having a difficult time at home because her brother and the son of the mother, not of the second mother, of the second wife, of the first wife, died drowning. He was 8 years old. So the second wife is very sick, and Evelina prays for assistance from her mother. But her mother is actually obsessing the second wife because of jealousy and because she blames Zulmira, the second wife, for having killed her son. Her son her name is Zulmira. Her son name is Júlio. Júlio died drowned on the beach, and Zulmira Odila blames Zulmira, sorry, again, Odila and Zulmira. Odila blames Zulmira for the drowning of the son, and she's partially right, because what happened here is when Zulmira got married to Amaro, who's the name of the husband, she got jealous of the kids, the attention he was giving to both kids, and she secretly wanted Júlio to die. Because Júlio was the one that was getting more attention from the father. They had a very good relationship. And she was jealous. So when they went, one weekend they went to the beach. She was in charge of taking care of Júlio. And she allowed him to go to play in the sea. And she didn't really took good care of him. And he drowned. Immediately she felt guilty. And with the guilty conscience, what did she do? She attracted the mother. So we connect ourselves to our obsessors and our protecting spirits according to our level of vibration. The moment she lowers her level of vibration, Zulmira, because of the guilty feelings, she immediately attracts Odila close to her. Odila was already trying to persecute her because she was jealous of her getting married to her husband. And so when they make this connection, Zulmira is feeling with the guilty conscience, falls sick, and struggles to lead a normal life. And that's why we have the prayer from Evelina. Let's see if it goes. One, two. It's 2 and 2. And there we go. So, Clarencio gives some passes on Zulmira, and Zulmira falls asleep. Now, you know the expression, the criminal always goes back to the scene of the crime, right? So what happens to Zulmira? In the sleep state, you see here, she's connected by the silver cord to her physical body. She immediately goes back to the beach where Júlio drowned, and she persecutes him, she chases him, blaming her and accusing her of having killed her son, of having destroyed the family, and she's trying to defend herself. And Andre Luiz, always a man of action. If you follow Andre Luiz books, he's always trying to take actions. He never wants to wait. And in most cases, the mentors always have to hold him back, tell him, let's wait, let's see how it develops. Let's not interfere because we can cause more harm than help. And in this case, he says, Clarencio tells Andre, because Andre wants to separate them, interfere and separate them. And Clarencio tells Andre that if you separate them at this stage, probably Zulmira was going to be much worse than she is, because she's sort of feeding in these energies that they are exchanging to each other. So what it has to be done is that you have to separate them through love, not through imposition. So Clarencio said that this is a case for Sister Clara that will come later in the book, and we will understand why he is not going to act himself. So he also tells that there is a lot of spirits around in the beach, a lot of spirits of incarnate people that went there during their sleep. And Clarencio explains that the beach, the mountains, are places that spirits renew their energies during their sleep. So it's very common that when you are asleep, if you are having a peaceful sleep, or if you're having, you need to recharge your batteries during their sleep, you are normally taken either to mountains or to fields or to the beach. The sea water helps renew the energies. Odila, they take Zulmira back. Odila continues chasing and persecuting, and they ask about the boy. Next. Okay, it froze completely. So they ask, we can go without it. Oh, there we go. They ask about the boy. Where is Julio? And Clarencio explains that Julio is in a spiritual colony for children being treated. Andre and Hilario wanted to see the boy, and Clarencio said, yes, okay, you can see the boy, but first let's work. Let's go to another place where you are going to meet a family whose mother just lost her son, and we are going to take her to see her son in the same spiritual colony, so let's not waste our trip. So they go to the house of this lady here, who's important also in the story. Her name is Antonina. She is a mother of 4 children, 3 of them incarnated, and this one discarnated. He discarnated also when he was 8 years old. So they arrive there. There is an old man spirit sitting in a chair, but we will come back to him later. And they take her with them to this spiritual colony for children. So let's talk about discarnation for children, because that's something that is always asked in our study groups. When a child dies, what happens for them back in the spiritual world? There are different scenarios. The basic rule is, if a child is aware of itself, it goes back to the spiritual world still as a child. Because if you are aware of yourself, you cannot change back to who you were before. So if a 3-month-old baby dies, a 3-month-old baby is not aware of itself. It goes back to the spiritual world and goes back to the previous physical, spiritual appearance it had, because it didn't have time to completely reconnect with the new physical body. Starting around 1.5 years, 2 years, is when a child is aware of who they are, even if it's very basic, but they are aware who they are. So when they die, they will go back to the spiritual world and continue to grow as they were going to grow here in the physical world. Unless it's a more evolved spirit, you know, a spirit that is already evolved, comes here for a short mission, generally to help the parents or to serve as an example of something. This spirit that is more evolved can come back to the spiritual world and immediately reacquire the spiritual form that they had before incarnating. So let's talk about Clarencio, which is the more evolved spirit we see here in this story. It's likely, not guaranteed, but likely that if Minister Clarencio reincarnates and dies when he's 7 years old or 5 years old, he would go back to being Clarencio immediately. But that's the exception. The rule is that the child will go back to the spiritual world and continue to grow in the spiritual world. They have special colonies for these children. Yes?
So all of that you were saying is something that is natural, happens, or is something that depends on the spirit? So, for example, if Clarencio wants to just to keep his child form, he could do it, or it's...
He could do it. He could do it, but it wouldn't make sense, right? If he has the ability to go back to being Clarencio, and it comes with the knowledge and the moral evolution and understanding, he would go back to being Clarencio because he wants to continue working. This type of spirits, they work all the time, so they don't want to stop working. So he would, and again, it's likely, because I don't really know if Clarencio is at that level of evolution, but it's likely that he would go just back to being.
But the kids would be no choice. They would continue to...
If you don't have the moral evolvement, the understanding, the knowledge, no. Okay. You are going to go back to the spiritual world and continue growing normally as... And again, normally here is normally for the spiritual world. I'm not going to say that if a child dies when they are 7 years old, it will take them 13 years for them to become 20-year-old. Time in the spiritual world, in this type of colony, is similar to us here, to Earth, but doesn't mean that all the children have to follow exact the time on Earth. If they are already a little more advanced, they can grow faster and reach maturity faster and leave the colony. But again, we're talking about most cases. At our stage of evolution here on Earth, we, the average spirits here, we go back to the spiritual world as a child. We continue to be a child in the spiritual world for some time. Now, okay? Okay, good. So Antonina meets her son, and they are very happy to see each other. She's going, when she wakes up, she's going to think that she dreamt with her son. She leads a very difficult life. If she goes to the spiritual world and completely remembers what happened there, clearly remembers, she runs the risk of going into a depression, going into some sort of feelings that wouldn't help her, because the real happiness is here in the spiritual world. So to be bound by a physical body, when you are, if you are aware of what happens here, is very difficult. So what she will feel when she wakes up is a happiness of having met her son in dreams and feeling that he's fine, and that's basically the whole thing that she's going to remember. She's not going to remember the whole going to the spiritual colony or anything in details. Next. So Andre Luiz asks, where is Júlio? And Clarencio say that Júlio is sick. He cannot be together with the other children because he drowned and he still feels the effects of the drowning. Why is that? In his case, it's because of his past. Júlio is a committed suicide in his previous incarnation. Actually, he took poison to kill himself. His friend saved him. But when he recovered a little bit, he jumped on a river and killed himself. So he complicated even further his situation. He drowned on a river, came back as a child, drowned on the sea. So he was readjusting for the crime he committed against himself. His father, mother, they are all related to what happened to him in a previous incarnation. But he feels still a lot of pain in his throat because of the suicide that the attempted suicide where he tried to poison himself. So he's in no conditions to be running free with the other children and growing as a normal kid in the spiritual world, as a normal kid would do. Again, each case is a specific case. There are no two same cases in any of us. We all go through different paths, and we all face the consequences of our actions. If we have committed crimes against ourselves, the life in the spiritual world becomes very difficult for us. Clarencio gives a very good comparison here of us leaving the physical world and going back to the spiritual world when he says, imagine that a bird is inside a cage and the bird is sick. You open the cage and the bird leaves the cage. The bird is still sick, right? The cage is our physical body. The bird is we and our spiritual body. If our physical body is sick, we carry it to our spiritual body, unless, and we'll see that later, our incarnation helped us repair that problem that we brought, and we came for an incarnation to repair that, and you'll see that later in Júlio's story. So they go back to Antonina's house. Here is Antonina, and remember that I said there was this old guy sitting in a chair, discarnated. Always repair that whenever you have a silver cord, this is the perispirit of an incarnated person, and when you don't have anything, these are spirits in the spiritual world. This old guy was Antonina's grandfather that passed away, but also he was before, in the incarnation before, she was his wife for a short period of time, and then she left him and betrayed him. She came back, incarnated again after a very difficult time in the spiritual world, and he, after her, he got married, led a normal life, but always thinking about her in the sense of a wife that betrayed him. Now, of course, he's very confused. He doesn't know exactly where he is. Why is he in Antonina's house? Because as his granddaughter, she always prayed for him. She had a lot of affection for him as her grandfather. And when he's lost in the spiritual world, he's attracted by the prayer of those that love him. And in this case, it's her. But he doesn't really understand where he is, who is this, because he's confused between his life, his whole life. He discarnated old, but he remembers her when he was married to her in the beginning. He still feels that he's in the war. He fought in the war that Brazil had against Paraguay in the end of the 19th century. So what Clarencio does here is applying some passes on him. He makes him go back to show what happened to him, to tell the story of what happened to him, so Andre Luiz and Hilario can learn about his past. And they learn about his past, and Clarencio explains that everything that happens to us in all of our incarnations is saved in our hard drive, which is our conscience. And it's saved very in a very organized way. It can be accessed by the evolved spirits at any time. So Clarencio goes to his memory bank and accesses directly the time that he was there, married with Antonina, that was called Lola at that time. So they bring Antonina when she's sleeping, and also by doing the same transformation, she goes back to the form of Lola, of her previous life, so they can face each other and reconnect. He's very surprised when he sees her. He tries to accuse her, but he has feelings for her as his granddaughter. So he has these conflicting feelings of love for his granddaughter and hatred for the wife that left him in the same person. She asks for forgiveness. She tells him that after she left him, her life was miserable. She had a horrible life. She also remembers her life. They take the appearance of what they had at their life, accessing again the bank memory. And he accepts her claim for forgiveness, and then Clarencio say that he's going to be treated and taken to a spiritual colony to prepare himself for a new incarnation, that it will be somewhat related to Antonina. There we go. When he's remembering what happened to him, he calls this traitor, which is the guy that took her away from him. His name is, in that life, is Esteves. His name in the present life is incarnated, is Mario. Mario was, when he was Esteves, he was a nurse, and he stole Lola, which is in the present case Antonina. We are going to have a graphic with all the names so you can remember what happens, who is who there, right in the middle of the presentation. So he starts accusing Mario. Mario, which is, I'm going to use the actual name so you guys don't get confused, okay? He starts accusing Mario. Mario doesn't understand anything. He's angry also, surprised at seeing her. angry at seeing him, but completely confused of what's going on. You know, when we have those nightmares that are not the crazy nightmares, but real nightmares, that things are happening to us that makes some sort of sense, but we really don't understand what's going on. That's probably what he was feeling there during his sleep. So they take him back to his house and follow him. And one last here. So our friend Mario wakes up in a very bad mood. He said that he had a terrible nightmare, and his mother tries to help him and console him, and asks him if the nightmare, what was the nightmare? And he says that it's probably about Zulmira. So we connect to the other family, Zulmira, the one, the second wife that is married to Amaro. Mario was engaged to her, and she left him to marry Amaro. So he has an intense hatred for her and for Amaro for having betrayed him. So, and he thinks that the dream that he had was with Amaro, not with the old guy Leonardo. So he wakes up remembering the betrayal that he had and angry at thinking about Zulmira and Amaro. Yes? Who is Zulmira again? Zulmira, I remember in the beginning, yeah, I know, it's complicated. That's why I said it's a telenovela, this. Zulmira is that lady that is being obsessed by Odila in the bed, married, second, stepmother of the girl that started the whole story with the prayer. Okay?
And they're married in present times.
Zulmira and Amaro are married, Evelina's father.
Ah, okay.
And he was engaged to her, and she left him to marry Amaro. Okay? We'll get back there if you need. Yes, it has to be, right? Otherwise we don't have a book. If all the stories are separated, has nothing to do with one of the other, we don't have a story.
You need a flow chart. Every chart has to be a flow chart.
You see, coming up soon. So, same night, Mario goes to sleep, and immediately Clarencio brings Amaro, Evelina's father, Odila's first husband, Zulmira's actual husband.
Remember that.
Yes. But I had to read the book like 1,000 times to remember all the story. So they can, to try to make peace, to try to have them reconciliate. Parenthesis, they were good friends in the time of the betrayal and the past incarnation. And we'll get there also. There are a lot of betrayals there.
Yeah.
Yes?
So you're saying that, like, while people were sleeping, those three spirits are bringing them to this place and to that place. Is it like that easy? Like while we were sleeping, like we go wherever they take us?
Yes, it is that easy. Of course, respecting all the laws of you being in a sleep state, but they will put you in a sleep state in a way that you can be transported. The fact that we are away from our physical body doesn't mean that if something happens to you and you wake up, you immediately come back. It's not that you are unconscious in your sleep state. You are just in a sleep state. Normally, these are exceptional cases, right? When the spirits takes us. This is when they are working on something. Normally, we ourselves go somewhere during our sleep, either in the spiritual world, here in the physical world. We meet friends, we meet loved ones, we meet those that we don't like very much, So now, talking about dreams, right? Because that goes back to what we dream. Normally what the spirits explain to us is not all dreams are us in the spiritual world. The part of the dreams that is very confusing, that is a lot of things that cross our mind that we don't understand anything, these are our brain, our physical brain, with the recollections and things of our present day. But again, the way we remember them is not exactly the way they happen, because it's important for us, for the reasons that I said before, that we don't fully remember our dreams. We need to remember just sometimes what's important, sometimes what we want, okay? Okay? So, Clarencio tries to harmonize these two, and just to add more complication, they were 3 best friends, these 2 plus Julio the boy. Okay? In that time of the Paraguay War, they were 3 best friends, and then one betrayed the other and everything, and you know, that's what happened that created all this drama that we are seeing here, and we'll talk about it as we go along. So Mario is inflexible, doesn't accuses him, asks for the presence of Julio also, where is the other one that is also, he blames Julio also for having betrayed, because what happened is that he was married to Zulmira. Zulmira, you know, the stepmother, the wife of Amaro. He was married with her. Julio stole her from him, and he stole her from Julio. Yes. So that's the drama. Yeah. So when Julio stole her from him, he went away and married Antonina, stealing Antonina from the old guy, Leonardo. Okay? Julio was with Zulmira, but then he fell in love with Zulmira, and they betrayed Julio, who then kills himself. That's how they are all connected. Okay?
And who saved Julio? One of those.
Who what?
Because I said when Julio tried to kill himself,
yes.
It was that.
Yes, was him with another. He was in the army, so was his colleagues from the army caught him and saved him, and took him to a hospital. But once he felt a little bit better, he escaped from the hospital and threw himself in the river, river Paraguay, which was the Paraguay War. Yeah, he's angry. Clarencio is trying to calm him down, and explain that it's all part of readjustments, that he's married to Zulmira, that Zulmira is sick, that Zulmira is suffering, and Mario wants no part of it, and keeps complaining and calling for the presence of Julio, and Julio cannot come. He's a child, he's sick, he's in the bed, but immediately when this is going on, Julio starts feeling worse, starts feeling the influences of their thoughts, and start getting worse. So what happened is that, well, here we're still in the story, and I'm going to jump that part because they were going to get more confused. Because in the end, what happened here very quickly is that in the end, Mario left Antonina and got married. Antonina, Lola, died in a very difficult death, and Mario was partly to blame for it. So let's see if we are. So when he starts complaining and asking for Julio, who comes is the sister that is taking care of Julio, Blandina. She comes and and explains that Júlio cannot be there, that he's feeling, he's sick. She asks for Clarencio and Andre Luiz to go back to see Júlio because he's in need of assistance. So they take Mário back to sleep, and you know, it's interesting because we think that the more evolved spirits are always able to achieve what they want. Here is a typical case that Clarencio brought those together to try to make them reconnect and overcome their troubles, but it didn't work. We have our free will. Even when we are sleeping, we have our free will. If we don't want, we are not forced by any spirit to do anything that we don't want. So before they take him to sleep, they take him to see Zulmira. Again, Zulmira is sick, sleeping. Odila, attached to her, doesn't leave her alone, because it was a last effort by Clarencio to make him understand what's going on and what he needed to do, but it was of no use. He just saw her as someone that betrayed him, and he really just wanted her to get worse. So Júlio is feeling all the effects of this fight that is happening in the physical world, in the spiritual physical world, right, by incarnates, and he's getting worse. So Clarencio goes there, provides some treatment. There are passes in the spiritual world also. It's not only here. So he treats him with passes, and he calms down and falls back to sleep. There we go. Back. Okay, so what do we have here? So it's the middle of the story, so you can remember who is who here. So Amaro, Júlio, and Mário, three good friends. Mário was married to Antonina, and who was previously married to Leonardo. So when Mário was first, he was not actually married to Zulmira, he was engaged to Zulmira, introduced his two friends to Zulmira. She fell in love with Júlio, and when he found out, he ran away and met Antonina and got married. Júlio was dating Zulmira, but Amaro was the third friend, fell in love with Zulmira, and eventually she left Júlio to be with Amaro. Júlio kills himself, and now they are married again to repair what they did wrong in the previous life. So he was Júlio's father, and they were already repairing the relationship they had. Júlio is eventually going to come back to them as a son. And Odila, Evelina's mother, first wife of Amaro, not part of this drama, is just someone that actually, as Clarencio was explaining, is a spirit that is more evolved than all this group here, but not enough that she couldn't fall back in these lower thoughts of hatred, of vengeance, and obsessing Zulmira. But what Clarencio explains is that it's not that she's not a lost case per se. She's someone that can be recovered with some love. And then we have Clarencio, Andre Luiz, Hilário, Clara, and Blandina. Blandina is the one taking care of Júlio, and it's interesting for those that know Mei Mei. Blandina is Mei Mei. Yeah.
Wives or no's?
In the book, they don't say anything about her having any relationship with him from previous life. But with all this, it's just logical to assume that there is some connection, maybe not from this time, but from a previous incarnation.
Wait, so does that mean everyone was always related to each other in past lives?
Normally, we are reincarnated with those that are related to us from previous lives. So you find in your family spirits that love you and you love, and spirits that you have difficulties and you have to readjust.
Yeah.
So in this case, and there is always a protecting spirit, a more evolved spirit in the family. In this case, in this family here is Evelina. She's the one that started the whole story, and through their prayers, very sincere and...
Okay, but does that mean as well, like, if you get married or something, that spirit as well were related to?
If you
like
get...
When you get married...
Married.
Yeah, or does that mean like that spirit...
Marriage is, most of the times, is readjustment. That's why we have such difficult marriages. Not always. Sometimes it can be, loving. It's a loving relationship that they come to work together for some purpose. But most cases, marriages at our stage of evolution is readjustment, and that's why we have so many problems in the marriage. And going a little bit further. You only find the problems after you get married.
Otherwise you wouldn't get married.
Exactly. Otherwise you wouldn't get married. So what happens is that you become what we say here, right? I was blind before I got married. How didn't I see that? Is on purpose, because we have to get married. We have to readjust. And again, I'm talking marriage here in the most ample sense. I'm not saying that you have to sign a paper, right? A relationship that you're living together is a marriage, right? Any type of relationship that you are living together. It's not that you are postponing marriage. You live together for 20 years. I'm not going to get married because then everything is going to get worse. No, you are already living together. It's already a marriage, okay? So let's go back to the drama. So Clarencio says it's time to take care of Odila. It's time to address the issue of Odila and the obsession. But he said that he's not capable of dealing with it himself. And Andre Luiz was very surprised. And, we are always also very surprised, because isn't Clarencio a more evolved spirit? He's one of the 72 ministers of Nosso Lar. He can't deal with Odila. And Clarencio explains that what she needs is love. And love in an amount that Clarencio, doesn't have. He could help her through to the intellectual side, but not through she didn't have enough love to give to reach her. So he said, we need to ask someone else to come and help us. So they go and look for Sister Clara, who is giving a lecture on, what was the lecture? I don't remember. Look in the book. It's a very interesting lecture. There is a whole chapter on the lecture, but it has nothing to do with the story. And I think the lecture is about the mind and how the mind works, the incarnate, discarnate mind. It's a very interesting chapter, but doesn't really affect the rest of the story. So they approach her after the lecture, and Clarencio explains the case to her. And of course, she already knew, and she said, I will be glad to help. They go to where Zulmira is sleeping, and Odila is there obsessing. And Clara, when she arrives there, she calls Odila and starts praying, sending a prayer out of love, and you see the light around her compared to the lights around. Clarencio has a light, Andre Luiz and Olario has less light, Clara has a lot of light. And immediately she kneels down, she thinks she's in the presence of an angel. She cannot understand what's this lady appearing in front of her, besides being an angel, and she asks for the angel to take Zulmira away because she's disturbing and destroying the family. And Clara makes a very beautiful appeal to her senses. Where is your heart? Where is your love? You know, and starts talking to her. And of course, with all this light around and all this love involving Odila, she breaks down and understands the necessity of moving away and let them be. But she asks about her son, Júlio, and Andre Luiz asked Clarencio, how come she didn't went after her son, right? Her son died and she's here obsessing. And Clarencio explains, we are where our mind takes us. And she was so obsessed with the jealousy and the hatred that she had no time to really try to help her son, which was what she was supposed to do, right? You can only imagine that a mother that when her son dies, she's already in the spiritual world, she's going to receive her son. And this is very, very common. In our mediumship meetings, we receive a lot of spirits that complain that they are not, where are my loved ones? If you say my loved ones are here to receive me, where are they? And they are always there. We are the ones that put a barrier in front of us and do not allow ourselves to see them. So when she changes completely, she's taken to her son to see him in the hospital. But before she goes there, she receives her husband, former husband, in a dream. You see him incarnated, Amaro, and talks to him, asking for him to be strong, that she would be there to try to help him. She makes peace with him because, of course, by hating the second wife, she's harming him also. So she asks for forgiveness, and she said that she's going to help them. Amaro goes back and wakes up feeling better, remembering that he dreamed with his first wife, and he wakes up with a nice sensation, because before that night, all his dreams with his former wife that was there in the house were nightmares. For the first time, he dreams and wakes up happy of having dreamt of her. So he comes back, and also Evelina in the dream sees her mother, and her mother tells Evelina to be of help to the family also, to help Zulmira recover, and that she would be there to assist them. So Evelina wakes up and also feeling very well, and thinking that her prayers have been answered. Remember, she has been praying for her mother since the beginning of the book. And finally, her prayers were answered by her mother. And finally, she's taken to see Júlio, and immediately when Júlio sees her, he says, "Mother, help me. I have my throat hurts. And Odila embraces him, but of course she doesn't know how to treat him. Clarencio tells Andre Luiz that the only medicine for Júlio is to reincarnate, and Andre Luiz immediately wants to tell Odila, and Clarencio said no, she has to find by herself that he needs to incarnate, because if we tell her, she has no merit. She has to have the merit to want him to be reincarnated as Zulmira and Amaru's son. Yes. So they leave. Time goes by. After 4 weeks, she comes back to Clarencio and say that she was trying to help Júlio but didn't know how to help him. And by studying and learning, people around the place there told her that the only cure for him was to reincarnate. So she asks Clarencio to help on the reincarnation process. So Clarencio wisely tells her, okay, so who do you recommend? He should be reincarnated amongst some of your friends, some people that you love. Who do you have there on earth that should receive Júlio as a son that is going to help him? And she answers that she didn't have many friends because she was very focused on her marriage, that the only ones that he really know is Amaru and Zulmira. So she asked if Júlio could be reincarnated as their son. And Clarencio said, of course. So let's start the process. So they bring Zulmira during her sleep. You see here, she's sleeping, to reunite with Júlio. Zulmira is very, very happy, because Zulmira has a guilty complex of having killed him. But she didn't. She was partially responsible, but not directly responsible. She didn't kill him. Her lack of attention caused his death, just for you to remember the beginning of the presentation. So she's very happy to receive Júlio as a son. So the process of reincarnation starts. They bring Júlio to her house, and for more details of how this process works, read the Missionaries of the Light, the Reincarnation of Sigismundo. This describes very well how the process works. And actually that was the other lecture that I gave at IESS, was that the Reincarnation of Sigismundo. So we're not going to go into details here, but how the process of the union works. But she receives Júlio as she gets pregnant, and she starts receiving Júlio. Now, very difficult pregnancy, and they have to take care of her during the whole 9 months. She had a lot of problems, and Clarencio explains when the vibrations of the spirit reincarnating and or the vibrations of the mother are not very elevated, that causes a lot of disturbances in the pregnancy. Now, let's be careful not to generalize. Don't think that every woman that is going through difficulties on the pregnancy has, an enemy reincarnating or something like that. But we are all spirits struggling in our evolution. We are all like them. So we are all part of these difficult pregnancies and difficult relationships. So, for instance, they give examples. If not talking about the specific case, I'm talking in general cases. If the reincarnating child is an enemy of the father, enemy of the past of the father, the mother can feel aversion to the husband during the pregnancy. She doesn't know why she cannot stand her husband during the pregnancy. It's it's a possibility that the reincarnating spirit is an enemy of the Father. If, yeah, we are all here readjusting, so that's part of our daily struggles with our family, our loved ones, our work relationships. The sickness, morning sickness, it's normally caused, that medicine can still not explain, it's normally caused by the spirit that is reincarnating, the cleaning of the thoughts and of the inferior energies of the spirit reincarnating. The reincarnation process cleans us of some of our inferior thoughts, and how this goes directly to the mother and causes the morning sickness. Yeah, you see how much information you have in the book? Elder, how many books you have there for people to buy?
I have a question.
Sure.
It's not related, but that means if every time you're sick, does that mean that you get some type of problems spiritually? Right?
Not every time, but sometimes.
Okay.
Normally the diseases that are with what we call karmic diseases,
Yeah.
cancer, diabetes, these are originated in the spirit and then transferred to the physical body.
Okay.
Right? Now, if you smoke your whole life and you get lung cancer, you cannot blame the spirit, right? You are harming yourself, right? If you have a common cold, it has nothing to do with the, but most of these karmic diseases are readjustments that we have to go through. And again, it doesn't mean that you have to, that a disease that it cannot be cured. Sometimes you have to go through the disease, but it's going to be cured.
Yeah.
So these all these cancers that have been cured, you had to go through it, but it's over when it's over. And we have to look for medicine to help us overcome anything that we have, any problems. We cannot. Spiritism tells exactly the opposite of Hinduism, that tells that you have to let your karma take care of you. You cannot touch the person because it's their karma. They have to go through the disease. No, we have to actively try to help ourselves and to overcome any problems that we have. So Julio is born, and of course, what did he have? He has problems in his throat. He has serious problems in his throat. He can barely speak. He can barely breathe. It's the second incarnation that he has to readjust for what he did to himself in the previous one.
How many does usually, like, that's his second, right? So second incarnation.
Yeah.
How many does the body, the cycle goes?
In this case, any case is a case. In his case, it's two, because he drowned himself. He tried to commit suicide by poisoning himself, and then he committed suicide by drowning himself. Yes. So he has to face these two consequences.
In the beginning, you said that there's a reason why we don't remember certain things about the spiritual life, and then this is the second time. Don't you kind of like reborn the spirit, or why is he still bringing that?
Because what we was telling her, right? He has his spiritual body is damaged. He damaged his spiritual body. When we damage our physical body, we damage our spiritual body. So we carry with us back to the spiritual world, especially in the case of suicide.
Okay.
So if you shoot yourself, your perispirit is going to have an injury to the head all the time in the spiritual world, until you come back, and you can come back with serious mental diseases to repair. You repair in the reincarnation. Again, there are things it doesn't really have to reincarnate to repair. You can repair in the spiritual world also. But at our stage of evolution, it's more difficult.
Okay.
Because we don't have the knowledge to do it. That's why we have to come here and go through it. But eventually, yes, as we evolve, we are going to be able, through love, because we can evolve through love or through pain. Because we don't know how to evolve through love, we evolve through pain. But we will learn. We will learn to evolve through love. You see Sister Clara. She has all the love already. She evolves through love. So we will get there. And then when we get there, then reincarnations will be on a mission, to help others, to help, it will be a pleasant experience in the sense of and we see those spirits around us, Mother Teresa, right? Her reincarnation, she suffered, yes, because here in this world we still have a lot of problems around us, but she dedicated her life to helping others. She's already in a stage that the reincarnation is on a mission, it's not on a expiation, atonement. Okay? So, remember Mario? No, that's a doctor. Mario is a nurse. He's a nurse again in this. He used to be a nurse in that incarnation. He's a nurse in this incarnation, which is something interesting, right? So as we evolve, shouldn't we learn different things? Yes, we should. But if we didn't do our job when we are on one incarnation, we come back and continue. Or if we did our job, but we still have more to help others, we can come back and continue with the same profession or the same job that we had in the last incarnation. In his case, he came back and became a nurse again for some reason. So Andre Luiz and Hilario go to the hospital because when Julio was sick, a doctor was called, and they find that Antonina went to the hospital with her daughter. Remember, Mario doesn't know her up to this point. And Mario immediately feels an attraction to Antonina that he doesn't explain. He looks at her and looks like he knew her from before. And we have a lot of these, we feel that we know someone and we don't know from where. And it's most likely from a previous life. So he offers to accompany her to her house to take care of the daughter. But the doctor tells him to come back because he had to go to another residence to help a young kid that was very sick. He needed to give him treatment. So, and that's all part of how Mario is going to readjust. When he goes to Antonina's house, she asks him, she says that they normally do the gospel at home at that night. So she invites him to participate. Mario was not involved in any religion or but of course he felt, because of being first time in the house and the attraction he felt towards her, he was happy to oblige. So he opens the gospel like we should open, without knowing exactly where he's going to open, and Clarencio makes him open in a page, "Forgive your enemies." And on the comments, Antonina tells him, you are a nurse, you cannot have enemies, you only live to help others, you don't have enemies. And Mario doesn't say anything, but we know what he thinks. Then he leaves and goes to help the kid, and is very surprised and uncomfortable to learn that is the son of Zulmira and Amaro, his enemies. Remember all the night that he had all the problems with them. But at the same time, he remembers what he had just seen at Antonina's house, the gospel, the forgive your enemies. So he's very conflicted. On one side, he wants to help the kid. On the other side, he wants to kill the kid. He starts treating the kid, but Julio Julio's disease is beyond repair, right? It's part of his karma that he had to go through again. So he starts treatment on Julio, but the treatment that he's giving, he's also sending all these negative thoughts towards the boy that Clarencio blocks. Andre Luiz asks Clarencio, could he have killed the boy with these inferior energies, with these black thoughts that he was having? And Clarencio said yes, he could, because the kid is a fragile child, already sick. He could have killed the kid, but Clarencio protected the kid, and actually what happens is that his thoughts went back to him. Chico Xavier used to say that when we send negative thoughts to others, we send the copy and keep the original.
Send a copy and
Keep the original. So that's what he's doing here. But anyway, Julio discarnates, and
He dies?
he dies. Oh, Julio dies again. Yes, he had a problem with the throat. He had to go through another one.
That one is Mario.
This one is Mario. This one is Amaro, the father.
Ah, okay.
This is Odila, the former mother, right? Amaro is embracing the kid, and you know, is praying for the kid, and you see that his all this love that goes towards the kid. Mario feels the love that he has for the kid and starts feeling guilty, thinking that he was the one that killed the boy.
And how old was the boy?
It was like 2 or 3, something like that, very young. So the first one, he lived 8 years and died drowning, and now he lived only 3. Next. So Mario goes directly to Antonina's house, feeling guilty, and opens himself to her. She didn't know his story, right? So he tells his whole story, that he was in love with Zulmira. Zulmira left him to marry Amaro, and that he thinks that he killed the boy. And Antonina tells him that he has to face the reality that he probably didn't kill the boy, that these things happen, that he's supposed to give his support to them, to that, you know, forgive your enemies and all the story. And Mario starts feeling more comforted and asks her to go with him and visit them on a later date, so they can one less, there we go, that they can help her. When they go visit in the next day, Zulmira is very sick. She just lost her son. She's feeling very, with everything, you know, after all she went through, she finally had another son and then loses her son again. Difficult, right? And reaches a point where she needs she needs a blood transfusion, and Mario offers his blood to help her, and that's how, in the end, he repairs and starts helping the family. So Julio is back in the spiritual world, healthy, recovered. He got rid of all the problems that he had. So you see him sleeping peacefully. Zulmira is brought to see him, and she's asked to receive him again as a son. Yes. With the protection of Odila, who became the guardian angel of the family.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes. So they, oh, there you go. So they become good friends. Mario gets married to Antonina. Zulmira and Amaro become very good friends with them. They both get pregnant at exactly the same time. Antonina receives Leonardo, her grandfather, as the son, readjusting with Mario, the enemy, the father. And Zulmira receives Júlio once again as her son, now a healthy boy. Then, there you go. Evelina meets Antonina's brother when later, and they fall in love. They get married, and everyone is happy. Andre Luiz asks Clarencio if this is a happy end, and Clarencio said, "For the moment." We all have our struggles, you know, the physical life ends. We all have our struggles of the physical life. At the moment they readjust, they have a happy ending, but they are going to have to face the vicissitudes of life, but nothing similar to what they had just gone through. And one last. Then Odila, Clarencio asks Odila, tells her that her job is done, that she made the reunion, the family happy, and asks her where does she want to go now next in the spiritual world, what work she wanted to do. And she answers that she would like to stay with the family and continue helping and assisting them as their guardian angel, especially of her daughter and of her former son, Júlio. So that's the last chapter, where finally love covers a multitude of sins, as our Master Jesus tells us, and they all live happily after until the next book.